The email had said quick royalty chat. That's all. So I walked into Pinnacle Literary Agency expecting good news, maybe a bump in sales for Echoes of Tomorrow. Instead, I found out my literary agent, Janet Morrison, had secretly signed our co-authored bestseller exclusively under Elena's ex-boyfriend's name, Derek Ashford. The betrayal cuts deeper because this isn't the first time someone has stolen my work. It's happening again. My breath catches, a familiar cold dread seeping into my bones. Not again, please, not again. I'm sitting opposite Janet's imposing mahogany desk, the one she always said projected authoritative calm. Right now, she's anything but calm. Her usual crisp, confident demeanor is replaced by a nervous energy that crackles in the air. She shuffles a stack of papers, the rustling unnaturally loud in the otherwise quiet office. Her gaze flits around the room, everywhere but my face. That's the first alarm bell. Janet never avoided eye contact. "Marcus, good to see you," she finally says, her voice a little too bright, a little too brittle. "Coffee?" "No thanks, Janet. Just eager to hear about the latest figures." I try to keep my tone light, matching hers, but a knot is already tightening in my stomach. My eyes drift to the corner of her desk, where a glossy stack of promotional postcards for Echoes of Tomorrow sits. I pick one up. The cover art is stunning, just as Elena and I had envisioned. But then I see the author's name, Derek Ashford. My name, Marcus Thorne, is nowhere. Vanished. Erased. "Janet," I say, my voice dangerously quiet. "Why isn't my name on this?" She flinches, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. "Oh, that's just a preliminary mock-up, a small printing error. We're getting it fixed." Her explanation is too quick, too rehearsed. The air in the room suddenly feels thick, heavy. The scent of her strong lavender perfume, usually a comforting aroma I associated with successful meetings, now mixes with the stale, acrid smell of old coffee, creating an oppressive, cloying atmosphere. It's the smell of lies. My hands, resting on my knees, begin to shake. It starts as a faint tremor, but it's growing. "A printing error? On all of them?" I gesture to the stack. "Janet, what's going on?" "Marcus, it's a bit complicated," she begins, still avoiding my eyes, her fingers pleating the edge of a stray document. "There were some contractual nuances?" "Nuances?" The word tastes like ash in my mouth. "I want to see the original contract, the one Elena and I signed." My voice is firmer now, the tremor in my hands spreading to my words. But I push through it. "I need to see it." Janet hesitates. Her face, usually a mask of professional composure, is pale. Her perfectly applied lipstick seems garish against her bloodless skin. "Marcus, I assure you, everything is in order." "The contract, Janet, now?" Her shoulders slump, a sigh escaping her lips. She gets up slowly, her movements stiff, and walks over to a tall, gray filing cabinet tucked away in the corner of the room. It looks ancient, a relic from a forgotten era of publishing. Her voice quivers with each reluctant word as she explains. It's in here. Standard procedure for sensitive agreements." She fumbles with the keys, her hand shaking so much she can barely fit the key into the lock. Finally, a click, and the drawer slides open with a protesting screech of metal. The musty smell of old contracts, of aged paper and dried ink wafts out, filling the already tense air. It's the smell of secrets, of buried truths. She pulls out a thick manila folder, her name Derek Ashford emblazoned on the tab in bold black letters. My heart hammers against my ribs. She hands it to me, her touch clammy. I open it. Page after page, legal jargon swimming before my eyes. But one thing is terrifyingly clear. On every signature line meant for the author, there's Elena's name. And then, beside it, bold and arrogant, Derek Ashford's. My name is nowhere. Not on the main agreement, not on the riders, not even in the fine print. It's like I never existed. Like echoes of tomorrow, the world Elena and I bled for, dreamed into existence together, was solely his creation. A cold wave of panic floods through me, so intense it's hard to breathe. My vision tunnels. I can hear my blood roaring in my ears. I tremble, not just my hands now, but my whole body, a deep, visceral reaction to the enormity of the betrayal. He stole it. They all stole it. Janet, Elena, Derek. But then, a strange sort of calm descends. It's the quiet power of pure, unadulterated rage, channeling itself into a single, focused thought. Document everything. I can't break down. Not yet. Not here. I reach for my phone, my movements surprisingly steady. Mind if I just... I trail off, not waiting for an answer, and start taking pictures. Page by page. Signature by signature. Clause by damning clause. I keep my expression neutral, even manage a weak, dismissive smile, as if this is all just a bizarre misunderstanding I'm sure will clear up. Just for my records, I say, my voice remarkably even. Lawyers, you know, always want copies of everything. Janet just nods, her eyes wide, her face a mask of dawning horror. Perhaps she's realizing the magnitude of what she's done, or perhaps she's just scared of what I'll do next. Good. She should be. As I photograph the last page, my gaze catches a handwritten note scrawled in the margin of an addendum. It's Janet's distinctive cursive. TV interview confirmed for Derek Ashford tomorrow, 7 p.m., Channel 4, national slot. Tomorrow. The ticking clock starts in my head, a frantic, deafening beat. He's going on national television to claim my work, our work, as his own. The audacity of it is breathtaking. I hand the folder back to Janet, my composure a carefully constructed dam holding back a flood of fury and despair. Thanks, Janet. I think I have everything I need. As I turn to leave, my eyes snag on another file folder peeking out from under a stack of manuscripts on her credenza. It's a different color, a vibrant, optimistic blue that clashes horribly with the gray reality of the moment. The label on it reads, Echoes of Tomorrow, The Reckoning Ashford. Underneath, in smaller print, Progress, 30,000 words. A sequel. They're already writing a goddamn sequel. A sequel to a book I co-created. A sequel I never agreed to. A sequel that will further cement Derek Ashford. As the celebrated author of a story that poured from my very soul, the dam inside me doesn't just crack, it shatters. The world tilts, and for a moment, I think I might actually be sick right there on Janet Morrison's expensive Persian rug. How deep does this go? The drive home is a blur. My mind keeps replaying that label. Echoes of Tomorrow, The Reckoning. Reckoning. The irony isn't lost on me. A reckoning is coming, all right, but it won't be the one they've planned. My hands grip the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles are white. Each stoplight, each car that cuts me off feels like a personal affront, fueling the inferno of betrayal raging inside me. How could Elena do this? How could we go from partners, from lovers, to this? My apartment feels cold, empty, despite the late afternoon sun slanting through the blinds. I drop my keys on the table, the clatter echoing in the silence. I need to think, to plan, but all I can do is remember. Remember us. 18 months ago. The Northwood Writers' Workshop. I see her across the crowded room, a splash of vibrant red in a sea of muted earth tones. Elena? Even then, there was an energy about her, an almost palpable creative force. We were paired for a collaborative exercise, and the chemistry was immediate. Not just literary, though that was undeniable. Our ideas sparked off each other, her lyrical prose blending seamlessly with my knack for intricate plotting. We talked for hours that first day, about books, about dreams, about the kind of stories we yearned to tell. The sound of her laughter, rich and uninhibited, echoed in the stuffy workshop room, a melody I'd soon crave. We started meeting for coffee, then dinner. Our writing sessions became legendary, at least to us. Spread out on the floor of my small living room, surrounded by takeout containers and scattered notes, we built the world of echoes of tomorrow. Her notebook paper was always cream-colored, slightly rough to the touch, her handwriting an elegant, flowing script that was as beautiful as her prose. I'd watch her, mesmerized, as she'd chew on the end of her pen, her brow furrowed in concentration, then the sudden lighting up of her eyes as a character's motivation became clear to her. "He wouldn't just say that, Marcus," she'd argue passionately. "He'd show it, through this tiny, heartbreaking gesture." And she'd be right. She had an instinct for character that was breathtaking. Her words used to captivate me, wrap around me like a comforting embrace. Now they feel like shards of glass. I was the architect of our story, meticulously crafting the complex narrative arcs, the twists and turns that would keep readers guessing. Elena was the soul, breathing life into our characters, making them so real they felt like people we knew. Each chapter we completed was a small victory, a shared thrill. I remember the tremble of excitement that would run through me as a particularly difficult plot point resolved itself, or when Elena would read aloud a passage of such profound emotional depth. It left me speechless. We were creating something extraordinary, something that felt bigger than both of us. Our professional partnership deepened into something more. Late-night writing sessions often bled into early morning conversations, fueled by caffeine and the heady intimacy of shared creation. Her scent, a mix of old books and the faint, sweet aroma of the jasmine tea she always drank, became inextricably linked with the story we were weaving. I yearned for those days, for the easy trust, the shared passion. How could that Elena, the one who'd look at me with such open admiration, orchestrate this monstrous theft? Then there was Derek, Elena's ex, Derek Ashford. He hovered in the background of our lives like a persistent shadow, a published author whose early success had dwindled into a bitter, resentful stagnation. Elena rarely spoke of him, and when she did, it was with a dismissive wave of her hand, a flicker of old annoyance in her eyes. "He's complicated," she'd said once, and left it at that. I remember the one time he came to her apartment while I was there. He'd read a few early chapters of Echoes, his lips curled into a sneer. The sound of his bitter laughter when he finished still grates on my nerves. "Cute," he'd said, handing the manuscript back with a condescending pat. A bit derivative, but cute. I'd wanted to punch him. Elena had just ushered him out, her face tight with an emotion I couldn't decipher at the time. Embarrassment? Anger? Or something else? Looking back, the signs were there. Small, insidious warnings I'd been too caught up in the creative whirlwind, too blinded by love to see. The increasing frequency of hushed phone calls Elena would take in the other room, her sudden preoccupation with Derek's career, his contacts, the way she'd started subtly pushing for Derek's agent, Janet Morrison, to represent us, even though my gut screamed against it. "She's a shark, Marcus," Elena had insisted. "Exactly what we need." A shark, all right. One that devoured me whole. A cold certainty settles in my chest. This wasn't just Derek, this was Elena too, my Elena. I switch on my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Thank God for my meticulous, almost obsessive record-keeping. It's a habit born from past hurts, from smaller betrayals that taught me to protect my work. I pull up the shared drive where Elena and I stored every draft, every note, every brainstorming session for echoes of tomorrow. Every document is time-stamped. Every collaborative session recorded in meticulous detail in my personal writing journal. Dates, times, specific contributions. I've got proof. Mountains of it. This quiet power move, this lifelong habit of documenting everything, might be the only thing that saves me. My email? I search for Elena's name, scrolling back through months of correspondence. And then I see it. An email chain I was never meant to see, accidentally forwarded to me amongst a batch of research links. It's between Elena and Derek, dated 3 months before we signed with Janet. The subject line, "The Plan." My blood runs cold. I click it open, my heart pounding. Derek. Is he suspecting anything? Thorne's no fool. Elena. He's too trusting. Worried about the ethics, though. This feels wrong. Derek. Don't go soft on me now, Elle. This is our chance. My contacts, your fresh perspective, his plot. It's a bestseller, and I need this. You owe me. Elena. I know, just be careful. I scroll further. Message after message, discussing how to pitch it as Derek's solo project, how to handle the advance, how to phase me out. My own words, my plot points, dissected and claimed. Elena knew. She knew from the beginning. She didn't just allow this to happen, she orchestrated it. The realization hits me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. The woman I loved, the brilliant writer I admired, the partner I trusted implicitly. She sold me out for her parasitic ex. The yearning for the past curdles into a sickening, hollow ache. It wasn't just my book they stole. It was my heart, my trust, my faith in the very act of creation. And the most damning part? Her final message in that chain, sent just days before we signed with Janet. Okay, Derek, I'm in. For old time's sake. Let's make Echoes his masterpiece. His masterpiece, built on my bones. The text messages, the emails, the photographed contract. It all swims before my eyes, a sickening kaleidoscope of betrayal. I can't stay here. I can't just sit with this. I need to see her. I need to hear her say it. I grab my keys and my phone, the evidence a burning weight in my digital pocket, and storm out of my apartment. The city lights blur as I drive, each red light an unbearable delay. Elena's apartment building looms, a familiar structure now imbued with a sinister aura. The scent of the jasmine candles she always burns, a scent I once found intoxicating, now seems cloying, funereal, as I imagine it wafting from her windows. I don't bother buzzing. I know the code. I punch it in with trembling fingers and take the stairs 2 at a time, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I pound on her door, not waiting for an answer before trying the knob. It's unlocked. She's in the living room, curled up in her worn leather armchair, a book lying unread in her lap. She looks up as I burst in, her face pale, her eyes wide and haunted. She's been expecting this moment. I can see it in the resigned slump of her shoulders, the way she doesn't even feign surprise. "Marcus," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the sudden drumming of rain against the window panes. The storm outside mirrors the tempest inside me. The metallic taste of adrenaline, sharp and bitter, floods my mouth. How could you? The words tear from my throat, raw and hoarse. My hands are trembling again, not with fear this time, but with a white-hot rage that threatens to consume me. I hold up my phone, displaying the picture of the contract, Derek Ashford's name a bold black lie. His name, Elena? His... She doesn't deny it. She doesn't even try. Instead, she closes her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She looks small, defeated, a stark contrast to the vibrant, confident woman I fell in love with. She collapses further into the chair, as if the weight of her deceit is too much to bear. "I had to, Marcus," she says, her voice choked with unshed tears. "You don't understand." "Understand," I laugh, a harsh, broken sound. "Understand that you sold our story, our soul, to that leech? That you erased me like I was nothing?" I'm pacing now, the confines of her small living room feeling like a cage. The sound of the rain pelting the windows intensifies, an ominous backdrop to our unraveling. "It wasn't like that," she insists, finally meeting my gaze. Her eyes are pleading, desperate. "Derek, he had something on me, something from college." "Something? What could possibly justify this?" She takes a deep, shuddering breath. "Plagiarism," she whispers, the word hanging heavy in the air between us. "My senior thesis. It wasn't entirely my own. Derek found out. He's known for years. He threatened to expose me, to ruin my career before it even began, unless I helped him. Unless I gave him echoes." A new wave of nausea washes over me. Blackmail. Of course. It's the only thing that makes a twisted kind of sense, but it doesn't excuse it. It doesn't absolve her. "So you chose him? You chose to destroy me to save yourself?" The accusation hangs there, heavy and undeniable. "No," her voice cracks. "I tried to protect us both. I thought if he got this, he'd leave us alone. He promised." "Promised?" I can't keep the scorn from my voice. "You believed a promise from Derek Ashford?" It's then, in the midst of my tirade, that a cold, calculating thought cuts through the rage. I'd hit record on my phone's voice memo app the second I knocked on her door. A reflex. Another layer of self-preservation. Every word, every sob, every damning confession, it's all being captured. My quiet power move. A lifeline in this shipwreck. Elena continues, her words tumbling out in a torrent of guilt and fear. "He's been blackmailing me for years, Marcus. Little things at first. Favors, money. But then he saw what we were creating with echoes. He saw the potential. He became obsessed. He said this was his last chance to be relevant again." She's crying openly now, fat tears rolling down her cheeks, leaving glistening tracks. "He said if I didn't give him this book, he'd not only expose my plagiarism, but he'd also find a way to discredit you, to make sure anything you wrote would be tainted." I stop pacing. Her words, her fear, it feels genuine. The raw despair in her eyes isn't faked, but it's the final piece of her confession that truly devastates me, that sends a fresh spear of ice through my already shattered heart. She looks at me, her eyes filled with a terror that chills me to the bone. "And Marcus," she whispers, her voice barely a breath. "It's worse than you think. He's already sold the movie rights. He used fabricated evidence, emails he faked between himself and a version of you that agreed he was the sole author. He showed them to the studio. They bought it. Movie rights, fabricated evidence. The scope of Derek's deception, of his meticulous, calculated cruelty expands, stretching far beyond one stolen book. He hadn't just stolen our past, he'd stolen our future, too. My legs feel weak. I sink onto her sofa, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a vast, terrifying emptiness. He's thought of everything. He's covered every angle. How do I fight a ghost who holds all the cards? Panic begins to creep back in, cold and insidious. I leave Elena's apartment in a daze, her tearful confession echoing in my ears. The rain has stopped, but the city streets glisten under the streetlights, reflecting my own fractured state. Movie rights, fabricated evidence. The tendrils of Derek's scheme reach further than I could have imagined. Back in my own apartment, the familiar scent of my old coffee maker, usually a comfort, does little to soothe the turmoil inside me. I need to act, not just react. The panic that threatened to overwhelm me at Elena's is receding, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He will not win. I spread everything out on my dining table, the photos of the contract, the printouts of Elena's emails with Derek, my own meticulously kept writing logs. It looks like a detective's war room, and in a way it is. I'm hunting a thief, a con artist who deals in words instead of jewels. The chemical smell of printer ink fills the small space as I begin to make copies of every single document. Physical copies, digital backups, cloud storage. I won't lose a shred of this. With each page that slides out of the printer, a small piece of the paralysis of betrayal falls away. My determination to expose Derek, to reclaim what's mine, liberates me from the despair that had threatened to drown me. I start online. Derek Ashford. I type his name into search engines, into academic databases, into writers' forums. I need to know everything about him, his publishing history, his interviews, any whispers of controversy. The first few hours yield little beyond fawning reviews for his early work and a string of more recent, mediocre offerings. But then a hit. A blog post from 5 years ago, written by a literary critic, dissecting Derek's supposed first bestseller, Crimson Tide. The critic points out striking similarities to an unpublished manuscript by a little-known author, Amelia Hayes, who died tragically young, just before her work could find a publisher. The blog post was dismissed at the time, labeled as sour grapes from a niche critic. But now, it screams of a pattern. The texture of old newspaper clippings, digitized and archived, feels almost real under my fingertips as I dig deeper into Amelia Hayes. Her family had tried to raise concerns, but without concrete proof, their claims went nowhere. Derek, with his established reputation and smooth denials, had weathered the minor storm. My fingers fly across the keyboard, fueled by coffee and a righteous fury. I cross-reference names, dates, publishing houses, and the pattern emerges, ugly and undeniable. Derek Ashford doesn't just steal, he targets. He finds vulnerable writers, young, inexperienced, or those in desperate situations. He often initiates romantic relationships, a predator grooming his prey, gaining their trust, accessing their work. Then, the collaboration, the subtle takeover, and finally the complete erasure of his partner. Echoes of Tomorrow wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of a career built on theft. My quiet power move, my decision to dig instead of just despairing, yields its first major breakthrough. I find a private online forum for writers who've been victims of plagiarism. I post a carefully worded, anonymous query about Derek Ashford. Within an hour, the messages begin to arrive. Tentative at first, then gaining courage. 3 writers, each with a story chillingly similar to mine, to Amelia Hayes's. Sarah Chen, a poet whose critically acclaimed first collection bore an uncanny resemblance to Derek's later, more experimental phase. James Lee, a screenwriter whose breakthrough spec script, optioned but never produced, mysteriously resurfaced as Derek's award-winning play. Maria Sanchez, a novelist whose early unpublished manuscript about a dystopian future seems to have laid the groundwork for Derek's second bestseller, the one that cemented his visionary status. The sound of my phone buzzing incessantly with incoming messages, each one a fresh wave of validation and horror, becomes a soundtrack to my investigation. I'm not alone. Derek isn't just a plagiarist, he's a serial predator. He's built a literary crime ring, with himself as the kingpin. I tremble, not with fear this time, but with a potent cocktail of rage and a strange, fierce excitement. This is bigger than me. This is about justice for all of us. The ticking clock from Janet's office, the deadline of Derek's TV interview, intensifies. Now, it's not just about stopping him from claiming echoes of tomorrow. It's about dismantling his entire fraudulent empire. His movie deal for Echoes, the one built on fabricated evidence, is reportedly being finalized tomorrow. That means millions, an escape hatch, a way for him to disappear and enjoy the spoils of his crimes. Then, the final, crucial message arrives. It's from Sarah Chen, the poet. "Marcus, I think I can help. I've been building a case against him for months. I have more than just suspicions. I have proof." My breath catches. Proof. The word hangs in the air, a beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. The next morning, I meet Sarah Chen at a small, bustling cafe downtown. The city is waking up around us, commuters rushing past, the aroma of roasting coffee beans a welcome change from the stale scent of deceit that has clung to me for days. Sarah is small, with intelligent, assessing eyes that miss nothing. There's a quiet strength about her, a resilience forged in the fires of a betrayal similar to my own. The warmth of the fresh coffee cups we hold contrasts sharply with the cold, hard reality of our situation. As she speaks, laying out the meticulous evidence she's gathered against Derek over the past 2 years, my own chaotic collection of facts begins to coalesce into a coherent case. She has financial records, expertly hidden, showing large, unexplained payments to individuals connected to the literary estates of deceased or obscure writers whose work Derek later reimagined. She has sworn affidavits from disgruntled former assistants of Derek's, hinting at his methods. My hands, which had been perpetually trembling, steady for the first time in days. Purpose, clear and sharp, liberates me from the helplessness that had gripped me. We're not just victims, we're a coalition. "We need to contact James and Maria," I say, my voice firm. "All of us together. He can't fight all of us." The sound of our unified voices, first Sarah's and mine, then joined by James's pragmatic baritone over speakerphone, and finally Maria's fiery, indignant, Spanish-inflected English, grows stronger with each conversation. We share our stories, our evidence, our pain, and in that sharing something shifts. The individual burdens lessen, replaced by a collective resolve. Marcus orchestrates the plan. It's daring, almost reckless, but it's our only shot. Simultaneous exposure. We'll hit Derek from all sides just as his interview is set to begin. News outlets, social media, literary journals, legal channels. A coordinated strike designed to dismantle his reputation and his freedom in one fell swoop. My quiet power move. I'd already reached out to a prominent intellectual property lawyer, a bulldog known for taking on high-profile plagiarism cases. I'd laid the groundwork, contingent on finding more evidence. Now, with Sarah's dossier and the testimonies of James and Maria, we have a cannon, not just a slingshot. I call her. She agrees to represent all of us, pro bono for the initial filings, fueled by the sheer audacity of Derek's crimes. The group decides to make our stand during Derek's live TV interview. The symbolism is too perfect to ignore. He wants the spotlight? We'll give it to him, but not in the way he expects. There's just one crucial piece missing. Elena. Her testimony, her first-hand knowledge of Derek's blackmail and his methods, would be invaluable. It would make our case airtight, undeniable. I try calling her, my fingers trembling slightly as I dial her number. Straight to voicemail. Again and again, a knot of unease tightens in my stomach. Where is she? After her confession, I'd felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. But her silence now is unnerving. Sarah's small apartment becomes our war room. The scent of rain, a sudden downpour lashing against her window, mirrors the storm we are about to unleash. Time is slipping away. Derek's interview is in 18 hours. We need Elena. We try her friends, her family. No one has seen her since yesterday. Panic begins to set in. What if Derek got to her? What if she's had second thoughts, decided to run? Then, Maria, using a contact in hotel security, makes a devastating discovery. Elena checked into a discreet downtown hotel late last night, under a false name. Hope plummets. She's running. She's abandoned us. Abandoned me again. A false name. The words echo in my head. Elena isn't just avoiding me. She's hiding. The fragile tendril of understanding I'd felt for her snaps. Is she protecting herself or protecting Derek? I have to find her, I tell the others, my voice tight. The squeal of my tires as I pull away from Sarah's apartment building echoes through the empty, rain-slicked downtown streets. It's 2 a.m. The city is a ghost town, its glittering lights reflecting in the puddles, mocking my urgency. I check the first hotel on my list, then the second, then the third. 12 hotels in 3 hours. Each polite but firm denial from a graveyard shift receptionist chips away at my resolve. Desperation is starting to liberate rational thought, making me reckless. I'm chasing a ghost, fueled by a toxic mix of anger and a desperate, lingering hope that she hasn't completely turned her back on justice, on me. My hands tremble on the steering wheel, slick with sweat despite the cool night air. I'm about to give up, to concede that she's gone for good, when a memory surfaces. Elena's quirks. She always said she wrote best near water when she was stressed, that the rhythm of the waves or the flow of a river soothed her thoughts. It's a long shot, a desperate gamble. I wrench the wheel heading towards the harbor district. The salty tang of ocean air, carried on the damp wind, slowly fills my car. It guides me, a faint, almost imperceptible beacon, the Tidewater Inn. It's old, a little run down, but it overlooks the bay. Exactly the kind of place Elena would choose for its melancholic charm. And there she is, sitting in the dimly lit lobby, her laptop open on the table in front of her, fingers flying across the keyboard. She's typing furiously, her brow furrowed in that familiar look of intense concentration I know so well. For a wild moment, I wonder if she's working on the reckoning, furthering the lie. I approach slowly, my heartbeat thundering in my ears, loud enough to drown out the distant foghorns. She looks up as my shadow falls over her table, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, defeat and exhaustion etched into every line of her face. There's no surprise, only a deep, weary sadness. "Marcus," she says, her voice hoarse, "I knew you'd find me." "Why, Elena? Why run?" The anger is still there, but it's tempered by a confusing surge of relief. She's here. She's safe. She closes her laptop with a sigh that seems to carry the weight of the world. "I wasn't running from you, Marcus. I was running from him, and I was writing." She gestures to the laptop. My own exposé. Everything I know about Derek. Every threat, every stolen idea, every dirty secret he ever told me. I was going to send it to the press anonymously. The revelation liberates me from the worst of my anger. She wasn't abandoning the fight. She was fighting it her own way, alone. My quiet, fierce Elena. "Why didn't you tell me? Tell us?" I ask, sinking into the chair opposite her. Her quiet power move, the one that simultaneously offers hope and throws us into deeper peril, comes next. "Because I've been recording him for weeks," she confesses, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Every phone call, every veiled threat. I have his voice, Marcus, admitting to so much. I wanted to be sure I had something concrete before I involved anyone else." A surge of admiration, reluctant but undeniable, courses through me. But then her face darkens, the fear returning to her eyes, more potent than before. But Marcus, it's so much worse than we thought. He knows I have this. He called me an hour ago. He has compromising evidence on all of us. Not just my plagiarism, things on Sarah, on James, on Maria, financial indiscretions, old mistakes, private emails. He's been collecting blackmail material on every writer he's ever collaborated with, from day one. The sound of Elena's laptop closing, as she snaps it shut, echoes like a gunshot in the quiet lobby. Each victim, meticulously researched, their vulnerabilities catalogued, their secrets stored away like ammunition. He made many of them sign NDAs under false pretenses, documents crafted by high-priced lawyers that make direct legal action nearly impossible, a tangled web of legalese designed to protect him. Panic, cold and sharp, pierces through my newfound respect for her courage. Derek hasn't just anticipated our moves, he's checkmated us before the game even began. And his ultimate plan? I ask, dreading the answer. Elena's voice is barely a whisper. He's planning to disappear. After the TV interview, after the movie money clears. He has fake passports, offshore accounts. He's going to vanish and leave us all to deal with the fallout, our reputations in tatters. The TV interview isn't a victory lap. It's his grand finale, his escape route. And we're all just collateral damage in his twisted narrative. Elena's words hang in the stale air of the hotel lobby. Fake passports, offshore accounts, disappearance. Derek isn't just a thief. He's a phantom in the making, preparing to evaporate with millions, leaving behind a trail of ruined careers and shattered lives. The sheer, calculated audacity of it is almost paralyzing. His storage unit, Elena says suddenly, her eyes locking onto mine, a flicker of desperate resolve in their depths. He keeps everything there. The old manuscripts he's archived, financial records, personal notes. If there's a physical trace of his escape plan, it'll be there. We drive across the sleeping city, Elena navigating us to a nondescript self-storage facility in an industrial part of town she'd only learned about by accident. The musty smell of damp cardboard boxes and stale, stagnant air hits us the moment she pries open the roll-up door to Unit 237. It's crammed floor to ceiling with boxes, filing cabinets, old computer towers. Derek's entire sordid history, neatly packaged and stored away. My hands tremble as I start opening boxes, Elena beside me. It's a graveyard of stolen dreams. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of unpublished manuscripts, their pages yellowed with age, some handwritten, others typed on ancient machines. Plays, poetry collections, novels, screenplays. Each one a spark of creativity extinguished and absorbed by Derek. Elena unearths a series of notebooks. Derek's meticulous, chillingly detached notes. Detailed psychological profiles of his targets, our friends, our new allies, and countless others whose names I don't even recognize. He cataloged their weaknesses, their financial vulnerabilities, their emotional triggers. He knew exactly how to manipulate each one, how to gain their trust before shattering it. The texture of the old, brittle papers crumbles between my fingers as I flip through pages detailing lives he systematically dismantled. My determination, which had faltered in the face of his seemingly foolproof plan, reignites, liberating me from the paralyzing scope of his evil. He may be a monster, but even monsters leave tracks. Elena, her face grim, points to a locked filing cabinet. This is where he kept the sensitive stuff. She produces a small, bent paper clip from her pocket. Her quiet power move. A relic from a misspent youth, she admits with a wry, humorless smile. She jiggles it in the cheap lock, and with a soft click, it springs open. Inside, neatly labeled folders. Blackmail S. Chen. Blackmail J. Lee. Blackmail M. Sanchez. And then Blackmail M. Thorne. My own folder. My breath catches. What leverage did he think he had on me? But it's another folder, tucked at the very back, that makes Elena gasp. It's labeled simply Source Material Ashford Originals. It's almost empty. A few childhood scribbles, a terrible high school poem. The devastating revelation hits us with the force of a physical blow. Derek Ashford has never written a single original word in his entire adult life. Every book, every story, every critically acclaimed piece that bore his name, all stolen, meticulously curated from the minds of others. He wasn't just a plagiarist, he was a void, a black hole consuming the creativity of everyone he touched. The sound of my phone camera clicking, sharp and distinct in the dusty silence of the storage unit, fills the void as I document everything. Every stolen manuscript, every blackmail file, every damning note. This is it. This is the arsenal we need. Elena, her face ashen, trembles as she confesses the final, brutal truth, the one that ties it all together. He targeted me, Marcus, she whispers, her voice raw with self-loathing. Not just because of my thesis. He researched you. He knew about your talent from your early short stories, the ones that won those small university prizes. He knew you were the real deal. He engineered our meeting at the workshop. He used me to get to you. All of it. All of it was about stealing your voice because he knew he didn't have one of his own. The metallotype taste of fury, cold and potent, floods my mouth. It wasn't just a crime of opportunity. It was a calculated, predatory act, years in the planning. And then amidst the wreckage of Derek's literary thefts, I find it. Tucked inside a seemingly innocuous accounting ledger, a slim manila envelope. Escape plan final. Inside, 2 high-quality fake passports. One for Derek, one for a woman I don't recognize, flight itineraries to a non-extradition country, and details of several offshore bank accounts with staggering balances. Tomorrow's TV interview isn't just a celebration of his stolen success. It's Derek's carefully orchestrated farewell performance before he vanishes into thin air, a wealthy, celebrated author who never wrote a word, the final act of his grand deception. We don't sleep. Back at my apartment, which has now become the official command center for Operation Takedown Derek, the hum of multiple laptops and the frantic clicking of keyboards fills the air. The scent of strong, bitter coffee mingles with the electric charge of impending justice. Sarah, James, and Maria arrive before dawn, their faces grim but resolute. Elena, armed with her recordings of Derek and the contents of his hard drive, her secret weapon she'd copied months ago, is a whirlwind of focused energy. Marcus takes charge, not with orders, but with a quiet, confident orchestration. My earlier, tentative outreach to journalists, my quiet power move from weeks ago when I first suspected something was amiss with Janet, now pays off. I have a direct line to investigative reporters at 2 major newspapers and a prominent online literary journal. They're hungry for a story like this, especially with the ticking clock of Derek's national TV appearance. Elena, it turns out, is a social media savant. Her fingers fly across her keyboard, crafting a multi-platform digital assault plan, Twitter threads, Facebook exposes, Instagram stories with damning screenshots. Sarah, with her legal background, handles the preparation of the formal complaints to publishing ethics boards and law enforcement, cross-referencing our evidence with Amelia Hayes's cold case. James, the poet, crafts the emotional narrative, the human story behind the legal jargon, ready to be fed to sympathetic bloggers and influencers. Maria, with her Hollywood connections, begins discreetly leaking information to industry insiders, targeting the studio that bought the movie rights to Echoes. The sound of our collective typing, the murmur of urgent phone calls, the rustle of printed documents, it creates a symphony of retribution. Each of us has a part to play, our individual strengths combining into an unstoppable force. Marcus trembles, not with fear or rage anymore, but with a surging, almost unbearable anticipation. My confidence, battered and bruised for so long, liberates me from months of corrosive self-doubt. We can do this. We will do this. Elena, with a grim satisfaction, begins uploading Derek's entire library of stolen manuscripts to a secure public server, each one meticulously time-stamped to prove original authorship where possible, or at least predate Derek's claim. It's a digital monument to his fraud. We schedule the coordinated release of information for precisely 7 p.m., the exact moment Derek Ashford is slated to begin his victory lap on Channel 4. As he basks in the false glow of adoration, his world will simultaneously implode. The plan unfolds with military precision. Social media posts are scheduled, press releases are drafted and embargoed. Legal filings are ready to be submitted electronically. It's a house of cards, perfectly constructed, waiting for the final, decisive push. Then, at 6:15 p.m., just 45 minutes before go time, my phone buzzes. A text message, unknown number. "I know what you're doing, Marcus. Cute, but you're too late." It's Derek. A wave of panic floods through the room. How does he know? We were so careful. Elena's laptop screen flickers, then goes dark. "He's in my system," she cries out. "He's trying to wipe my hard drive remotely." The devastating realization hits us. Derek, paranoid and cunning, must have had monitoring software installed on Elena's devices, or perhaps he'd bugged her apartment. He's been watching us, listening to us this entire time. His escape plan, already in motion, accelerates. My phone rings. It's Sarah. "Turn on Channel 4, she yells, her voice tight with alarm. On the screen, Derek Ashford, smug and smiling, is already seated opposite the talk show host. The interview has been moved up by 6 hours. He played us. He knew we'd target the original time. And then the final, brutal twist of the knife. My phone buzzes again. Then Elena's. Then James's, Maria's, Sarah's. A text message from our respective banks, alerting us to large, unauthorized withdrawals, fraudulent charges, maxing out credit cards, draining accounts. Derek's final act of petty, vindictive revenge. He's not just escaping. He's trying to burn everything we have to the ground on his way out. My hands shake. Not from fear, but from a rage so profound it feels like it could level cities. He will not win. 30 minutes. That's all the time we have. Derek is live, charming the nation, while his digital minions are attempting to erase our evidence and his financial transactions are bleeding us dry. "He thinks he's won," I say, my voice dangerously calm amidst the rising tide of panic in the room. "He thinks moving up the interview and hitting our finances is checkmate, but he's forgotten one thing." "What's that?" James asks, his face pale. "His ego," Elena and I say in unison. A new plan, desperate and audacious, forms in a matter of seconds. Sarah and Maria will continue the digital counter-assault, rerouting uploads, fighting off Derek's hacking attempts, and getting our evidence to the press contacts who can run with it immediately, regardless of the interview. James will contact the fraud departments of our banks. Elena and I, we're going to the studio. We arrive at Channel 7 Studios a mere 15 minutes before Derek's interview slot is scheduled to end. The security is tight, but Elena, using a combination of charm, desperation, and the name of a producer Maria had managed to contact, gets us backstage. The bright studio lights create an oppressive, artificial heat, mingling with the sharp, chemical smell of hairspray and makeup. My hands no longer tremble. A strange, almost serene certainty has settled over me. This ends tonight, one way or another. Determination has liberated every last shred of fear. We find the floor manager, a harried woman with a headset askew. Elena's quiet power move. She'd already sent a compressed file of the most damning evidence, Derek's recorded confessions, key blackmail notes, directly to the show's head producer via Maria's contact with a single, urgent message. Your star guest is a fraud. We have proof. Want an Emmy-winning segment? The producer, intrigued and smelling a ratings bonanza, agrees to a surprise interruption. Derek is in his element, basking in the host's fawning praise, recounting an entirely fabricated anecdote about the inspiration for Echoes of Tomorrow. He's confident, expansive, his smile radiating a sincerity that makes my stomach churn. He has no idea what's about to hit him. I wait in the wings, my heartbeat steady, a stark contrast to the frantic rhythm of the past few days. This is it. The culmination of all the pain, the betrayal, the desperate scramble for truth. Then, the host, an almost imperceptible signal from the producer in her earpiece, leans forward with a predatory glint in her eye. Derek, this is truly a phenomenal story. But we have a surprise for you tonight. It seems your journey with Echoes of Tomorrow has another, rather unexpected chapter. Please welcome to the stage, Marcus Thorne. Derek's face. If I live to be 100, I will never forget the look on Derek Ashford's face at that moment. The confident smile freezes, then shatters. The color drains from his cheeks, leaving behind a sickly gray pallor. He looks like he's seen a ghost, and in a way he has. The ghost of all the writers he's consumed. I walk onto the set. The applause of the studio audience a confused murmur that quickly dies down as they sense the tension. The confrontation unfolds live on national television. I don't shout. I don't accuse. I simply state the facts, my voice clear and steady, presenting printouts of the original contract, of my writing logs, of Elena's emails with him. Derek denies everything, his voice regaining a blustering, indignant edge. He calls me a disgruntled former assistant, a failed writer trying to ride his coattails. Then Elena walks out, poised, beautiful, and utterly damning. She calmly, methodically, lays bare Derek's years of blackmail, her voice trembling but clear as she recounts his threats, his manipulations. The sound of Derek's nervous, dismissive laughter echoes hollowly through the studio. He tries to paint her as a bitter ex-lover, a woman scorned. My liberation comes not from anger, but from the simple, unassailable act of speaking truth to power on this national stage. We are systematically dismantling his carefully constructed facade, brick by stolen brick. Derek's narcissism, the very thing we counted on, becomes his downfall. He can't resist defending his genius. He tries to explain away the similarities in the manuscripts, the coincidences. In doing so, he inadvertently talks himself into a corner, practically admitting to taking raw, unfinished ideas and polishing them into brilliance. He's so desperate to claim some form of creative ownership that he confesses to the core of his crime. The studio audience gasps. The host looks like she's won the lottery. But Derek isn't finished. He has one last desperate gambit. He turns to me, his eyes blazing with a cornered animal's fury. And what about you, Marcus? So noble, so righteous. What about your own little secret? What about your college thesis, huh? The one you plagiarized from Professor Abernathy? He produces a sheaf of papers with a triumphant flourish. I have the proof. He's no better than he claims I am. He's a thief, too. The devastating counterattack. My own credibility, the foundation of our entire case, seems to crumble. The studio falls silent, the accusation hanging heavy and poisonous in the air. Derek smiles, a truly venomous, victorious expression. He thinks he's won. He thinks he's dragged me down into the mud with him. The silence in the studio is absolute, heavy enough to suffocate. Derek's accusation hangs there, a foul stench in the chemical-smelling air. His triumphant smirk is sickening. He believes he's landed the killing blow. But I don't panic. This moment, this exact desperate ploy, was anticipated. Elena had warned me he might have something fabricated against me, some twisted distortion of the truth. My ultimate quiet power move, prepared weeks ago when I first realized the depth of Derek's treachery, is ready. I nod calmly to the host, who signals to a stagehand. A moment later, a large monitor beside Derek flickers to life. On it, a scanned image of my original college thesis, Narrative Structures in Postmodern Dystopia. Dated, graded, and officially archived by the university library 5 years before Professor Abernathy, my mentor, published his seminal work on a similar subject, a work I, in fact, helped him research as his graduate assistant. Then, Elena speaks, her voice ringing with cold clarity. The evidence Derek is holding is a digitally altered document. He's taken sections from Marcus's publicly available thesis and inserted them into a fabricated version of Professor Abernathy's early notes. The metadata on the file he discovered will show it was created less than a month ago on Derek's own computer. The silence in the studio breaks. Derek's confidence, his smug smirk, finally crumbles. His face contorts, a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. His own evidence is now evidence against him, proving premeditated slander. The sound of Derek's breathing becomes labored, audible even over the shocked murmurs of the audience. His meticulously constructed house of lies is collapsing around him, live on national television. I feel a profound sense of liberation, not just from his accusations, but from the years of carrying the weight of his deceit, of Elena's complicity. I speak directly to the camera, to the millions watching. I speak about the insidious nature of literary theft, about the psychological manipulation, about the vulnerability of creators. I speak for Amelia, for Sarah, for James, for Maria, for every writer whose voice Derek tried to silence. The studio audience erupts, not in confusion, but in support. The phone lines, opened by the quick-thinking producer, light up. Other writers, some who knew Derek, some who simply recognized the predatory pattern, begin calling in live, sharing their own eerily similar experiences. It's a tidal wave of truth, washing away Derek's carefully crafted lies. Derek attempts to flee the stage, to escape the rising tide, but studio security, alerted by Elena's discreet signal to the floor manager, intercepts him at the exit. He struggles, his handsome face ugly with rage and panic, but it's no use. He's trapped. The metallic taste of justice, so long denied, finally floods my senses, eclipsing the bitter taste of betrayal. My hands are steady. My voice is strong. The scent of freedom, sharp and clean, cuts through the stale studio air. Even Elena's jasmine perfume, which she's wearing tonight, no longer triggers painful memories. It's just a scent, a part of her. The woman who made a terrible mistake but ultimately found the courage to help make it right. The final act unfolds with cinematic precision. As Derek is restrained, uniformed FBI agents, tipped off by Sarah's comprehensive legal filings, which included evidence of wire fraud and interstate transportation of stolen intellectual property, walk onto the set. His arrest, for a multitude of federal charges, is broadcast live. The detailed documentation from his storage unit, my photographs, Elena's recordings, it all provided the irrefutable evidence needed. 6 months later. The applause is a warm, welcoming wave washing over me. I look out at the packed bookstore, at the faces smiling up at me. Elena is in the front row, her expression a mixture of pride and a quiet, lingering sorrow for what we both lost and what we've managed, somehow, to rebuild. Our professional relationship, resurrected on a foundation of brutal honesty and hard-won transparency, has resulted in a new collaboration. I clear my throat and read from the first page of my new novel, Echoes Reborn, A Writer's Justice. The words flow, easy and true, entirely my own, yet richer for the collaborative spirit Elena still brings to the shaping of character and emotion. Later, as I sign copies, a young woman approaches, her eyes shining. "Your story," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "It gave me the courage to report what happened to my work." I smile, a genuine, unburdened smile. The dedication page of Echoes Reborn reads, "For every writer whose voice was stolen, this is how we reclaim it." Derek Ashford is awaiting trial, his assets frozen, his reputation obliterated. Janet Morrison lost her license and her agency. The movie studio, facing a massive lawsuit, settled with all of Derek's known victims, the funds managed by a trust Sarah helped establish. The fight was long, brutal, and it cost me dearly. But standing here tonight with my words, my name, and my integrity intact, I know one thing for sure. They can steal your story, they can try to erase your name, but they can never truly extinguish the fire of a voice determined to be heard. The echoes of truth, once unleashed, are impossible to silence.